Hello and welcome to another edition of the Wrap Up. I'm joined by Kyle Brickman, where we're recapping the Raptors 117-112 win over the Phoenix Suns. In, you know, was that a top 5 win of the season? Are you impressed as I am, or are you staying pessimistic to your true self like you had
No,
been
no, no.
last
Oh,
episode? Is it
this
top
is the
5,
best team
Kyle,
in
or
the league.
no? Top 5 or
It is the best team in the league. It's the best team in the league. They're missing Chris Paul. So, and to be fair, they showed it. They looked like they needed some composure down the stretch offensively, like really, really badly, and they didn't have it. But yeah, I'll give them credit. It was an excellent win. It was really like hard fought, and they were pushed at the end. So, and Matthew off the bat, did you bet on the game, Matthew? Thank you. We appreciate it.
Matthew made big money on this one. We appreciate the super dollars, whatever they're called. But yeah, I thought this was definitely a case of the Raptors. The Suns almost kind of came back in this one, but I didn't think that was necessarily an indictment of the Raptors. I thought the Suns were just playing really, really well and kind of took back control of a game on their own accord. And then, like, shout out to Campaign, man, who had an incredible game. But then the Raptors just kind of stayed composed and pulled kind of came back on the comeback and kind of pulled this one out of their hat. So I thought this was a really, really big win for the Raptors, considering kind of the stretch of games coming up, considering it's the best team in the league, considering, they're midway through a road trip here and they should be getting OG back this week if the 2-week timetable is still a thing. I think it was a really good win because I remember us talking in here like during the Magic and the Pistons losses, like everything has gone on fire. And it's like, there's valleys and there's peaks and I feel like we're kind of heading back in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a valley losing to the Pistons and
Fair.
Magic, but this is such a classic Raptors. Even like for decades, is like lose consecutive games to like the two worst teams in the league and then beat the best team in the league like 2 games later.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we ought to start with Gary tonight. And you've been, I won't say like a Gary hater, a Gary skeptic. That's like the polite way of saying hater. That's like the office
Yeah.
term for
But
hater.
I haven't been a hater. I think skeptic would be I don't even think skeptic is the right way to describe it. I think Gary doesn't fit the archetype of player that I generally am attracted to. So I'm never going to be like, he's never going to be my favorite player. But yeah, you're right that I've been lower on him than some people.
But tonight, and again, he's one of those guys. I didn't see a particularly big change in like tonight's game from Gary, and the other night beyond the shots were falling. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's just like they're going in, and that's what makes a good game. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a make or miss league, and sometimes it's that simple. He was on fire tonight, completely. 13 of 21 from the field, 42 points, 8 rebounds, which I guess a lot of those must have come like when they're playing that Thad Young at center lineup. I don't really particularly remember him like getting on the glass tonight, but I guess eight
Yeah.
rebounds. That's a big shock. Something that might not be a shock, only 1 assist. Fine, whatever. I actually liked his playmaking tonight. I thought he seemed to have learned. He's learned from Fred a little bit in Fred's absence, like having to take on more of a facilitator role. And he made some good passes tonight that just weren't finished. But that's not the story. The story is just the shot making, and the story is always really like when he has big nights like this, shot making, like we're watching right now, which is just incredible. Contested shots off balance, like nothing easy, nothing simple, but he makes it work.
Yeah. You buried the lead there. 8 of 11 from 3.
That's true.
Plus 0 of 2 when his hand came down on Campaign's face from 3. That should be in the box score, I think.
Was that a flagrant for you? The second one?
Oh God, I thought that there was a stretch there where the refs just took over the game, and it was such a good game. It was frustrating, but like, yeah, his hand hit him on both times, so I think it's fair to call a foul. I didn't see the flagrant. But whatever. We don't need to get into officiating. I thought, yeah, Gary was great. 8 of 11 from 3 is just absurd, and you're right that nothing different was coming than in the previous games. He's just making shots, and as he makes shots, just like anyone over the course of a game, he heats up. And I give a lot of credit to the Raptors because they don't always do a good job of finding the hot hand. And today they really did. They kept finding him and kept finding him with a open look for 3, and he just kept knocking him down, to his credit, on a night where they really needed the offense. So for sure,
Yeah,
Gary, yeah.
it's worth noting, like, the other two, I guess the main two for the Raptors, Siakam 10 for 24, and that's after like a pretty big fourth quarter where he really redeemed himself. But like Fred was 3 of 11 from the field,
Fred was bad.
great.
Fred
Fred
was
was
a
bad. Like they
bad
needed
game.
Gary tonight.
Oh,
They
for sure.
needed Gary badly tonight. So he carried them, as Scotty to a certain extent carried them over stretches. And Siakam again before that, the second half, but most of the fourth quarter, he was having like a bad night for the ages, like 4 for 15 type thing. So
Yeah, but Pascal was at least, but like he had 10 assists, so
yeah, and was
he
taking a
was.
lot of late clock attempts. Like he was
Yeah,
taking stuff like that, trying to bail them out. Fred
I
was just
thought
missing open jumpers.
exactly. I thought Pascal was okay. Fred just had a pretty uncharacteristic game. He also had 5 turnovers, which is very uncharacteristic for him. But yeah, like we always talk about how top heavy this team is, and how if Fred and Pascal usually don't have great games, they usually lose. And so Gary kind of had such a good game that they were able to win, because it's not like their bench was like blowing the lights off the tower. You know that saying, right?
Uh,
So
yeah, of course.
yeah, yeah.
That's the classic blowing the lights
Blowing
off.
lights off the old tower. So it was impressive for Gary, who was also a plus game high plus 20, to carry them when Fred and Pascal didn't have the nicest games. Who else should we talk about from the Raptors side of things? I mean, I guess we can do this quickly, because for anyone who watched last game, we had a thorough debate about Birch versus Precious Achua. Kind of who should get more minutes. I found this game for Precious to get only 16 minutes very confusing. Don't quite understand it, but you took more issue with Thaddeus Young getting kind of that closing stretch over Kem and Precious, until like 2 minutes left in the fourth, when Kem came in the game.
Yeah, Don, if you can go back to the last screen, just mouse over Thad Young, you can see the plus minus. Thad did not have a good fourth quarter, and the Suns were playing that really one of the weirdest lineups in recent memory. JaVale McGee, the fourth quarter went on. JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo. This is Thad's stretch here. Maybe we can go to plus minus as well. The Suns were just all over the glass. They were all over the interior. They're trapping really aggressively. I can see why you might want Thad out there, because he's more intelligent than Precious at this stage of his career. He can navigate those traps better. He gets the ball moving, but they just needed some energy and they needed some size. And sometimes it's like pretty simple. Yeah, Thad in that fourth quarter stretch, minus 14 in 7 minutes. That's tough. That's tough. I mean, like, if you want to mouse over one more time, like let me see how many possessions that is, because that is they're not gonna. I would have to look through it, but like that's not looking like a good. That's that's looking like a terrible per 100 number there for Thad Young, minus 14 in 7 minutes. Like I can't. Yeah, so he had a really bad stretch there, and as soon as Kem Birch came in, plus 5. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily Birch versus Achua tonight. I thought it was Birch versus that.
Mm. Okay, well, here Phoenix, like I don't completely agree with this point, but yeah, I don't really agree with this point, but I will say I understand the coaching staff's thinking, where if you close games with Precious at the 5, he is going to take offensive possessions for himself. And when Fred and Pascal and Gary are out there, you don't really want that. And so I think like Precious still needs to learn that when he's playing with the bench, he has a little bit more freedom. When he's playing with the starters, he has to dial it back. He hasn't really learned that lesson yet, but he's the best defender of the 3. So I would still lean him. I can't really sit here and be like and agree with you that Birch should have played because I've sat here for the last 10 games and said Birch has been really bad.
It
Like,
worked over Thad, though. It worked over Thad. You have to admit that. I mean, the numbers bear out.
yeah, I mean the numbers are like that's there's too many factors going into plus minus there. Sometimes it's just a couple shots this way and a couple shots that way. Like that Birch did come in and provide them good minutes, and I agree with you that Thad was not very good in this one. But I also didn't think he was like terrible because at least what Thad will do is he'll be that fifth option who doesn't hold the ball. He gets it, he moves it, he sets good screens, and then that's really all he's doing for you. Um,
Yeah, I think part of my frustration with Precious and the reason I'm maybe not as high on him as maybe I guess you and I think it's you and Aiden in particular. I think Saul and I are more on the same page, but like to me it feels like as Oren, oh my god. Listen, we're allowed to do film now. I'm not sure if we're allowed to do that. I think that we had an agreement with the NBA in place, and that might have put it in jeopardy. Um, what I was saying is that I think that the reason I'm not as high on Achua is that it frustrates me so much that you're basically telling me like, okay, here's a guy that's just going to hold the offense hostage by taking like random touches down the stretch because he needs his own offense. It's so frustrating to me. I agree that he's a terrific defender. I agree that he brings a lot offensively, but it's like the mentality irks me. Like I need my shots no matter who's on the floor, what time of in the game it is. Like that's too frustrating for me.
you know who else held the offense hostage for his
Okay,
own
but
shot?
he had 42. Or are you talking about Cam
Co-
Burge?
Kobe Bryant,
Okay. Okay. I
precious
understand.
Kobe Achua. No, but in all seriousness, like the best players have that mentality. You know what I mean? Like obviously Precious isn't the best player, but sometimes in order to become that, you have to have irrational confidence. And so that's why I don't mind it. Like I guess it all comes back to me that this is a development year, and if he did this shit in the playoffs, I would like be freaking out. So I get it. But the coaching staff is clearly saying you guys have freedom, and he's just kind of taking that freedom. And so I kind of find it hard to get mad at him for doing things that he's kind of encouraged to do.
That's fair. That's fair. But
I'm scarily high on Precious. Like every
yeah.
game,
Oh, I know.
I'm getting a little more high, and someone has to bring me down. So you're doing that. You're trying to.
Yeah, exactly. But we should move on.
Yeah.
Was there any I know we kind of touched on it, but Siakam is on a little stretch here where it's been a little iffy. It's not the shot's not falling very much at all. Are you concerned? Like
No, I'm
not
not
at all.
because I think the process is the same that it's been. And it's just the touch is a little gone. Since the All-Star break, the touch left him a little bit. The three is actually going down, which is encouraging. But yeah, it's like it was a pretty clear demarcation point for me that he took a break, he went on vacation, he came back, and now he has to rediscover that shot, that mid-range kind of touch. And I'm fully confident that he's gonna rediscover it because there's large enough of a sample size that says that he can. And I think the process in terms of the type of shots he's taking and where he's getting on the floor and all that stuff, and 10 assists tonight, obviously, like the playmaking didn't leave, plus 16. Defensively, he's asked to do so much. So I'm not worried.
Yeah, no, I would agree in general. I think it's just different because for me, like when Gary goes through a slump, it's like, oh, whatever, fine, like he's a streaky shooter, but Pascal's not really the type of game he has isn't really like shooting based. It's weird to see him streaking like this. By the way, thank you, Matthew. Again, I don't know. Is this the same donation, is this a second donation, Matthew? We
I think it's a
appreciate it.
second. Yeah.
Um, and I've always said, this isn't a young team. I get that like the average age is young, but their vets is still like they won a championship, they won a deep playoff run, etc. But
No,
I'm
they're
with you
young,
on this
dude.
in this
They're
sense.
young.
Like they just played a really good team and they were 100% locked in.
They're also young. I'll disagree with you there. I was just doing some research on this, and they have the the least experienced team in the entire league if you exclude Thaddeus Young's like most experienced person in the league
But
minutes.
what's the experience? Like, what's the metric of experience?
Games played.
Games played.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of that is like Banton has like 40 games played type thing. I mean, I'm talking about the nucleus of this team, and I stand by
Yeah.
like the fact that the nucleus of this team have won a championship, have played like well, at least 16 playoff games. I can't off the top of my head, like I don't know, maybe 30 playoff games, something like that, more than that,
Yeah. But
depending on
that's
the
only
person. So it's
2
like
guys when you look at who played tonight. That's only 2 guys.
that's true.
Everyone
That's true.
else and they're playing 9-man rotations.
You're sleeping
Everyone
on Chris
else.
Boucher. Chris Boucher he was out
Nah,
there.
dude. Go look up Chris Boucher. He hasn't been in the league as long as you think. Like,
Well, he won it. He won the championship. He was on the team. He
he was
was
on the
a definite
bench.
bench
He
warmer.
was
Yeah,
on
he
the
was a
bench.
definite bench warmer.
No, but to Matthew's comment, I agree. That's why I think it was such a huge win. Like, this win was very much like a good kind of omen or whatever for the Raptors style. Like, I thought this was a very Raptorsy win, especially you saw how they turned up the defense in the fourth quarter and started like Scotty had 3 steals in the last 2 minutes of the game, and they really have that ability to turn on the defense, start doubling Booker and making good things happen out of it. And the Suns were really overwhelmed by that length when they put the pressure on. And I thought it was a really Raptorsy win because you're looking at a team with 3 7-footers, right? And they played them all tonight. And yet the
At the same
Raptors,
time.
and yet the Raptors out rebounded the Suns 48-40, and they had 12 offensive rebounds to the Suns 5, which is pretty insane. And then obviously those steals at the end were also very Raptorsy, and it was just like they really used that length well against a big team that really knows how to move the ball and play smart. And
Yeah, it felt like towards the end, especially those last 3 or 4 minutes, like it felt like the Suns. If I'm the Suns coach, I'm just being like, no more passing. Do not make a cross-court pass. It's impossible. There are too many arms in the way. Nothing's working for us because the Raptors were just getting their hands on everything, like tipping everything or stealing everything. It was ridiculous.
yeah,
I've never. That is the vision. I know I've sat on this podcast a lot and been like, I don't understand the vision. I'm blind, whatever. But like, I'm if that is the way the defense can operate consistently, oh man, because they were everywhere, and it was super impressive. Scotty in general though.
Just one last point on the defense. I think the problem is, or I don't know if it's a problem, but I don't think you can play that way for 48 minutes.
No.
I thought they did a really good job of turning it up at the perfect time tonight, and the guys clearly had energy left. Like, no one played outrageous minutes. But we've seen games where they try to do that too early, and it messes them up, and that's still why I'm like on the side of get a center so you don't have to play this style 48 minutes. You can go to it with the last 5 minutes in the game, go to your best 5, and they'll still have that energy to turn it up and play that style at the end. But yeah.
It's interesting. Like in soccer, there are certain coaches that are like Marcelo Bielsa, who was at Leeds, or like Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, or like they're well known for like all their players are working super hard. They have the most intense stamina training. They've worked them the hardest in practice. Like maybe Nick Nurse just has to be that. Maybe he has to like go learn Spanish and spend some time with Marcelo
I
Bielsa in
think there
Argentina.
already are. This is the best conditioned team in the league.
It's true, but like you
yeah.
would ideally want them to be flying around like that way more than they currently are. And I get it. It's
Yeah.
not realistic. No one has the energy to do that, but like let's run some suicides in practice. Let's get it so that like they have the energy to do that 8 minutes a game instead of the last 5 minutes a game type thing. And that changes things. Again, I'm sure they're already running in practice.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse just isn't like, he's not a disciplinarian like that. I think that you need guys like that. It's like kind of an older coach who's like, we're running today, and Nick Nurse is like a hippie. He's like, we're getting stoned today, and we're like hanging out. We're gonna talk about like how we're switching, man.
I think like no, I think Nick is really on that shit. But I think like other than Pascal and Van Vliet, who have been there, have that stamina. But like Barnes and Trent, those guys get tired Precious, those guys get tired at the end of the game. They just haven't been with the Raptors for long enough to develop that kind of stamina.
Are you surprised the Suns didn't go zone tonight? Because it felt like the Raptors were really, really struggling against zone this little stretch here, this last 10-game stretch. And the
Yeah,
Suns,
especially that's a good point, especially because they played JaVale and Bismack together. You would
as
think
soon
they
as I
would
saw them
go.
check in, I was like, oh, it's a zone. It has to
Yeah.
be a zone. They're playing the 2-3.
And they even put Bismack on Pascal, and that didn't really work that well, but it was also like Pascal had an off night, so I guess it wasn't the worst decision. But yeah, in hindsight, yeah, that is kind of surprising considering how well it's worked. But also with Van Vliet and Trent shooting the way he's shooting, maybe they didn't want to kind of that really going zone when Trent is that hot kind of gives more availability for Trent to get open threes, I would say too.
It's always this is a good tweet, by the way. I don't know if this is a screenshot from earlier. I think it's hilarious that a guy of Blake Murphy's stature is getting one like on a tweet. Surely that's a screenshot from like a minute after he
Yeah,
posted it,
it
right?
definitely
It
is.
has to be. There's no way his interaction is that low. It seems ridiculous. Anyway, we'll move on. I don't want to do that to Blake.
Yeah, I feel like that's enough on the Raptors. Until we can take some questions. By the way, if anyone in the comments have questions, drop it, and we'll get to it in a bit. Um, but really quick, I want to shout out like campaign man. Who knew he had that in them? I didn't. Like he was just hitting the toughest floaters all night, and like obviously 3 of 9 from three. He kept them in this on a night where Booker didn't. Booker actually had a pretty similar stat line, but he didn't do Booker things. So shout out to Campaign for what he's doing. Jay Crowder, because I've been thinking about the Raptors who have the ability to use their full mid-level exception this upcoming summer. Jay Crowder was got for 9 million, the mid-level. And he's just been incredible for them. Could you imagine if the Raptors added a player of Jay Crowder's caliber for the mid-level and then brought all the same guys back, which they totally could do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In general,
This is
like
how you
these
build a championship team with guys like that, these kind of scrappy guys.
all these like peripheral guys in Phoenix are like Miles Bridges has taken a step as a scorer. Like
Yeah.
I would have never guessed. I think they were missing Cam. What's Cam Johnson tonight?
Yeah.
That's the name, right? I
Yeah.
think they were missing him tonight. He's been a good scorer, and obviously they're missing CP3. They're just their peripheral guys have been incredible in Phoenix. I don't know, maybe it's a Chris Paul thing because the same thing happened in OKC when he showed it. Like suddenly Lou Dort was like the man. SGA took a step. Maybe it's just part of Chris Paul's greatness, or who knows? But I'm impressed by their team building. And in general, they had a couple sets tonight that I was gonna ask Don to clip them, like just so I could go look at that later. That was fun. Don, clip that and let me take a look at that later. I just like the way they're coached. I'm really a big fan of the Suns team. They're fun to watch.
Me too. I think they're the favorite to win the title. And
Which makes us the new favorite now, right? That's how it
yeah,
works.
essentially. That's
Okay,
how it should work.
perfect.
Um no, okay, yeah. So any last points on the game before we do some film?
No, oh, I thought you were talking to the chat. I was reading Phoenix.
No, yeah, you.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I mean, nothing that we can't get into while we do film.
Okay, real quick, Can-Am Taxman of the Night goes to Gary Trent Jr., who again dropped 42 points on 8 of 11 shooting, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Just carried the Raptors offensively in this one and totally rediscovered that shooting for him that he had kind of lost for a few games after the All-Star break there. So really good to see Gary get
Like
back on track.
15 games. It's more than a few. There was like a good quarter of the season so far. He lost the
Was it?
shooting.
I thought it was just since the All-Star break.
Last 10 prior to this game, 30% from the field.
Oh, wow. I did not
Yeah.
realize that.
Oh yeah.
I guess it
But
was
he's
just because we
back.
had Fred and it wasn't like as
Yeah.
needed.
He's back though.
He's
Give it
back,
to
and
me.
that's all that
I'm all
matters.
in.
That's all that matters. So yeah, visit canamtax.com or call VJ at the top of the screen for all your taxing needs. It's tax season. Got to get them done soon, and no better place to get them done in order to get some real money back than canamtax.com. Once again, Gary Trent Jr., as you can see, lighting it up. He is our Can-Am taxman of the night. All right. Let's do a bit of film. I think I only have 2 clips. But let's see. Is this okay? So yeah, here's Pascal, and everyone kind of said. I mean, I saw a lot of people appreciating this one on Twitter because they said kind of his patience um th- and just like the
Composure.
vision. Yeah, the
Yeah, I think the
composure.
composure to take that backwards dribble out of a double team instead of like picking up the ball and like panicking is an
Yeah.
evolution of his that's like it's much needed, and it's something that he's improved on over the past couple of years big time.
Yeah, and the other thing that is an improvement that I didn't see as many people talking about is just the like he could have never done this because he didn't have the actual handle to pull off a move like this. So as much as the mental like approach and patience are all worthwhile, for him to be able to dribble in these spaces and see a double team and keep the ball close enough to him without losing it, like he like right there, he would have lost that ball last year, especially with Miles Bridges' long ass arms. And
Worth
instead
worth noting the relocation by Gary there is really good, like intelligent play because he gets out of the shadow of Miles Bridges
Mhm.
that Bridges has him in here. Mikhail Bridges, excuse me,
Yeah.
and gets completely wide open. So good job by Gary. That's like a shoot. That's like a true shooter move. Is like knowing how to relocate off the ball.
Yeah, that's another improvement because that's not really been his thing in terms of catch and shoot relocation. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out Pascal's improved handle because it's pretty um dramatically better this year than it's ever been, and I think it's a large part of why his playmaking has taken such a uptick this season, and that's
Yeah,
kind of you see why here.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the next clip here, let's see if okay, so you don't get it on the clip, but not Don's fault at all. It's just earlier, basically the Raptors scored the possession before this, and they're kind of jogging back on defense, and Nick is yelling at them to double Booker here. And before this was the first time they sent any aggressive defense. Before this, they were all playing like this was when it started. And it really, as you can see, catches Booker off guard. And more importantly than Booker, because he still passes out of it. Actually, it is really Booker, but his teammates also don't really react quickly enough to cut and give him a good option. And so it leads to the Scotty steal that I wouldn't say seals the game, but pretty much does. And so we've been on here really criticizing minutes recently. I got to shout out Nick Nurse for this one because he was on his feet calling this out and it worked to a T.
Yeah, I think in general, it's worth noting that this was part of a stretch of like 5 or 6 defensive possessions where they either like got a steal or got a tip or something and maybe let in like a wide open three maybe once. Like they had a great stretch over this 5 or 6 possession. And I got to shout out Scotty. I thought Scotty didn't have the best night offensively, but this is one of his best defensive nights. He was like everywhere, especially in this. Like we were talking about this 2 nights ago. Uh, Pascal, when Kawhi was like the alpha dog on this team, he was the on-ball defender. It was like Pascal was hanging out at the nail and just like jamming everything up, getting in the way of everything. This is Scotty at the nail. This is what I was talking about with Aiden. Like um, this he should be this type of defender. He an off-ball free safety where it's basically like hang out in the middle of the floor, congest everything. You're gonna get you have super long arms. You're gonna get your hands on everything, and so this was it. I think actually a lot of that run was it. I don't know. I think you need another guy in the poster in general. I'm a fan of like you got to like get someone on the poster.
No, for sure. But yeah, no, I agree. This was one of his best games. And like you said, it was the off ball defense. He had a couple blocks, one pretty impressive one on JaVale, and he had 5 steals. And that just shows that he was like engaged off ball all the time, swiveling his head and seeing what was happening. And we don't always see that from him.
Yeah,
So agree with you. One of his best defensive games for sure.
to me, I think a lot of his problem off the ball is not necessarily lack of engagement, but just legitimate confusion. And that's because it's like it's hard to play as like the low man, especially if you haven't played as the low man in college, where he did a lot of this stuff at the nail defensively in college. He's done this before. He's more aware. And this is sort of like his his happy place. Like I think he would still tell you he prides himself on being a defender, and he that was his thing coming out of the draft. He hasn't really shown it all this year, but I kind of love this, and I think that when they went to this, it worked tonight. I hope they go with it more often because he's smart. He reads the pass in the same way that Devin Booker reads the pass, and he plays two perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did we talk about Rookie of the Year last show?
A little bit. It's worth getting into though.
A little bit. Yeah. I don't even know if it's as much about if they finish above the Cavs as much as it's just about like, I was also just thinking about this. Like, I feel kind of bad for OG because you can already tell he's about to come back and he's kind of going to be relegated back to that like fifth, fourth option. And that's fair because he's going to be out of rhythm and Scotty's playing so well and all these factors. It's just it just sucks for him because the injury stuff is so unlucky. But if Scotty takes this opportunity and just keeps running it with it like he has since post All-Star break, I totally think he could pass Evan Mobley. And it's not even about the wins necessarily. It's more so just going to be about him asserting himself in every game rather than like every other game, right? And even tonight where he only had 15 points, actually not bad, but you didn't feel him too much offensively. You felt him like in the game because of what he was doing on the other end of the floor.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. It's barring like a crazy stretch from Scotty here, which I don't really see unless a Raptor gets injured and he gets way more touches, which is just be bad for the team. Good for like if you bet Scotty Rookie of the Year, or if you're like his agent or something, it'd be good for him, but like bad for the team if another Raptor gets injured and he gets more touches. So I just don't see it. Or maybe Mobley gets an injury. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Especially not Evan Mobley. I thought Evan Mobley's like playing excellent this year, really fun to watch. So I don't know. I want to be like that. I'm finding it hard to really fully buy in. Although it would generate some clicks as an article. So maybe we should strategically pretend like we believe this and just as a professional option.
I stay true to myself, but it's funny. I actually wanted to. I thought about it, and I am writing about Scotty tomorrow. But I couldn't make that argument. But instead, I kind of made the argument that just like he's having a bit of a mentality shift in terms of being more aggressive recently, and that's pretty important. But yeah, let us know if you guys have any thoughts about players the Raptors should sign for the mid-level this summer.
I was going to say this. That's what Phoenix, you distracted me earlier with the comment because I loved it so much it didn't even cross my mind. I think, had he not injured his ACL, he would have been in line for like one of those like $12 to $14 million contracts because he's a good player. I think he was one of the Jazz, like those Jazz teams that were winning like 50, 60 games type thing. He was one of their 4 best players. He might have been their 3rd best player, depending on how you feel like about Mike Conley. He's a good playmaker, which is his team looks for. He's a rangy defender, which his team looks for, and he's a good shooter. And by all accounts, like a good veteran, a fun guy. So I'd be all in on Joe Ingles.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like because of the ACL thing, it's like a high risk, high reward kind of thing, which I think the Raptors should be all over high risk, high reward, generally speaking, just because how else are they going to build this roster out? But I guess with Joe, the only way I would do it is if it was like a 1-year deal because he's getting up there in age. He's coming off an ACL. I wouldn't commit long-term money to someone like that. Maybe if it was a team option on the 2nd year, like sure. I mean, of course, but I wouldn't go beyond a 1-year, mid-level money for Joe. But one year, yeah, I think that's actually a good idea. If anyone else has any ideas, let us know.
I will say, just with the ACL thing, I'm really confident in modern medicine that like people can overcome that now. I'm being serious. I assume this is DeMarcus Cousins, not DeMar Cousins. Yeah. I don't know if he gets out of Denver. He's been playing really good. He's been like a good backup for Nikola Jokic. So I don't know if he makes it like to free agency.
Yeah, I don't want DeMarcus Cousins. You just name dropped though my fantasy basketball team name, which is
Jamar Cousins.
no, which is Modern Medicine.
Oh,
I
nice.
have Klay Thompson, Jamal Murray,
Okay. Was
Ben
this intentional?
Simmons, Pascal Siakam, and I'll tell you, it's not going well. It's not going very well.
Yeah, I also have an incredibly stacked team in one of the Raptors Republic leagues, but I just don't set my lineups because it's like too frustrating to do it every single day.
Well, that's why I dropped out of
Yeah,
our league because
not a fan of
I'll
that.
only do weeklies. Like it's
Yeah,
just
should be
too much
weekly.
work. But
Should
yeah,
be weekly.
I have dropped Jamal Murray, but I did draft him in one of the later rounds. That's not bad as Ben Simmons, who I picked like pretty middle in the draft. Thought he would definitely play by the trade deadline. What the fuck, Ben Simmons? You got to play basketball, man. You can't just take a year off.
Do you think Thad Young resigns with the Raptors? I think that might be their move, right? And
Oh, no,
they,
but that they have his bird rights. So basically they
yeah,
can use the MLE and still go over the tax and sign Boucher and Thad. It's just about, are they willing to be a taxpayer team or not? Those things are different, but
I think
yeah.
I was also making a comment about like it's going to affect the other types of guys we're looking for. It's like
Oh.
we'd be more guard focused with the
See, I
MLE.
think Thad is just like they'll re-sign him to be a locker room guy and a depth piece who's not really in the rotation. Like if they can get him for like a $5 million type of thing, that's what I think they'll do rather than like I don't think that he affects their roster building. Yeah, but if I had to guess, I would say they will sign Thad and maybe not Boucher.
I like Otto Porter Jr. He's injured though, so
Is
it's hard
he?
to say. Yeah, he has like not injured this moment maybe, but he just
Oh,
has like a terrible. He's too lanky, and I think his knees are a problem for him. Knees and legs in general have been a problem for him for a long time because he just doesn't have the weight, and he looks so gangly out there. It's like he's like a deer, like a baby deer. Is like you're always worried they're gonna fall down. That's Otto Porter to me. Really lanky.
yeah. Oh, is PJ Tucker a free agent? Let me think. He said no. I
I'm
know
pretty low on PJ Tucker.
he signed a 2-year deal with the Heat, so doesn't
I'm
matter.
pretty low on PJ Tucker in general, to be honest. I think
He's
we
he's leading the league in 3-point shooting percentage.
good for him. I
Ridiculous.
mean, it's all wide open from the corners. I like there needs to be a more comprehensive metric about like and someone I'm sure this will exist some way about like 3-point percentage factoring and like the difficulty of the shot, meaning like how close is the defender, how far away is it, etc. And that should be the metric people go off. Because he's taking wide open threes from the easiest spot in the entire floor to shoot. So like,
No,
good
for
for
sure.
him
Yeah.
being the best shooter in the league, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Kyle Anderson. Is Kyle Anderson a free agent? Gotta look. Can we look this one up, Don? That's interesting to me. But not the greatest shooter, but can shoot.
Another
And
non-shooter, like
it's
really.
interesting. It fits the vision, man. It fits the vision. All right. Um he's a UFA apparent according to Phoenix. Okay. Yeah, I mean the Grizzlies have a couple UFAs. You know who else is a restricted free agent this summer is Mo
Zion
Bamba.
Williamson. Oh, no.
Put Zion on this team, surround him with defensive minded guys. We're cooking with guys who can't shoot, but a lot of cutting will be going on. I'll tell you that right now. That'd be good. All
Yeah,
right.
I can see Mo Bamba. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
so impossible to determine his market. I think they have to take that team out of Orlando. I'm sorry, like I don't know what's going on in Orlando, man. They have
I was
not been
thinking
like
the same thing. Like, I mean, I've been writing this piece about Thad and basically like pondering the idea, like, is it worth it to move back into draft to get a guy who you're pretty much getting for his locker room presence? And it's like the Orlando Magic have so many talented players on their team, and yet they stink. And it's like talent is really like the intangibles I feel like are pretty underrated in the NBA. And like there's so much more than just like having skilled basketball players that goes into winning. So that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, but
I
I
will
agree with
say
you. The Magic should be relegated.
Yeah,
So should the
exactly.
Houston Rockets. Have you seen a Houston game this season? They
They
actually
beat the
don't have
Lakers.
any
Hey, come on, they beat the
schemes.
Lakers. Give them some
I know.
credit. Eric Gordon was cooking LeBron. Oh my god, Eric Gordon
I
was cooking
watched
him.
I watched one Rockets preseason game against the Raptors, and I said, "Yeah, I'm taking the under right now."
Never
Like
again.
their
Yeah.
over under, I'm taking it, and I'm making money from that one for sure, because
The
they just ISO their young guards, and that's it. That's what they do.
I think Jalen Green's been good as of late. Worth noting, I hate to do this. This is kind of a damper. If the draft was today, the Raptors would be pick they traded would be 17th, and the pick they received would be 33. So, uh, mm, I'm
So
not loving
16
that.
spots, 16 spots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For a guy who's like who's averaging like 7 points a game, and has a pretty bad net rating.
Well, maybe
But
my story will change your opinion, Kyle.
that's true. Hey,
Maybe.
why not?
You never know. Can we pull up the schedule, please, Don? Yeah, 2 games back now with that win. 2 games back of the Cavs. That's
They
nice to
could
see.
have used that win against the Cavs so bad. That would
Yeah,
have been
but
like
still very achievable. Uh, very achievable
and
when
they
you
play
look at.
Cleveland again anyway.
True. That's gonna be a really big game. But yeah, like these 2 Laker games are both winnable. Tomorrow night going into Denver in altitude. I'm gonna chalk that up to an L right now, and especially with no OG. This graphic came out about the best Jokic stoppers in the league. OG was literally like in second. So yeah, other than OG, we really have no one to even make Jokic's life hard. So he's gonna do disgusting things to us tomorrow. You said 1-3. How confident are you feeling about 1-3 after this win?
I'll give them another win. I'll give them. I think in the next
Two
four, I'll
and
go two
two.
and two.
Two
I
and
think
two.
that also has to do with the fact that the Lakers are like stinking up the joint to a level that I would have never expected.
Yeah,
The
but all
Lakers are.
season they've stunk up the joint, dude.
But
All season.
I have so much faith in LeBron, and this is like the first season where it's like, oh man, I
Yeah.
kind of don't trust LeBron anymore. Like he's, oh my god, man.
Yeah. And also, I was looking today after this big road trip, the Raptors actually close out the season playing 10 or 8 of 10 at home. At home, excuse me. So that's encouraging. Uh
Uh,
yeah.
in general, the Cleveland game, I don't know if the Boston game is relevant anymore because the Boston game, the team has just been like the Celtics have been just on such a crazy run, but they're playing a lot of their like neighbors in the standings, and then a lot of really bad teams. So this is a good little stretch for them. Like there's a possibility that the Raptors get up into 6 because they have after this road trip some very easy games, like the Orlando's of the world. I'm counting Indiana as they're frisky. I'm going to put them in the frisky category, but I'm counting it as an easy game. And then a bunch of teams that are in the same range as them. So if things go well, who knows, 6th seed.
Oh, I
I can
think
see
it's
it.
definitely still on the table, especially considering that Jared Allen injury. Um I think it's definitely on the table. They're also getting OG back very soon. So we'll see. Yeah, so Tuesday will be 2 weeks. So, maybe the Monday game, maybe the Wednesday game. We'll see. But I think it's reasonable to think that they could get that 6th seed. And then you just kind of gotta hope that the matchups play out in your favor and that the 3 seed isn't like
Yeah,
the Bucks or something,
yeah.
like
Which is
actually, that's what I wanted to ask you. Who do you think? Because me and S were, like, debating this on Twitter.
yeah. I saw.
It's like and I was shocked to see a lot of people say that the best matchup for the Raptors would be the Bucks. I totally disagree, but who would you think would be the best in terms of we gotta take Cleveland out of the equation. Everyone would pick Cleveland. So, in terms of the top 5 or 5, who would you pick?
Give me the Bulls and then the Heat as our sort of like 1A, 1B in terms of who I think the easiest would be. I think those are sort of in the same tier. I think if I'm being completely honest, I think the Bucks destroy us.
Yeah.
Giannis is so good. Their experience now, the only
Yeah.
reason they couldn't get over that hurdle, whether it be the Raptors or whether it be the Celtics a couple of years ago, is that they just didn't have the experience, and they just won a championship. I mean, this team, I'm all in on Giannis. I don't know I get that Jokic is having a great season. I get that Embiid's having a great season. Giannis is also having a historically great season and is like basically completely forgotten about. He's going to be a top 20 player. He might already be a top 20 player of all time. And so a lot of people are like, I'm fine taking the Bucks in the playoffs. I would rather see the Sixers than the Bucks in the playoffs. And the Sixers are a bad stylistic matchup for
Oh,
the
same.
Raptors.
Same. The
I
Bucks would
just
be
think
my
the Bucks
last
are on another
choice.
level. Like they're, I don't know.
Yeah, the Bucks would be my last choice. I would order it Bulls at the top because even though I don't think they're a great matchup for the Raptors in terms of just the way they move the ball and
They
some of the
can't
stuff
guard.
their centers can do. Yeah, they just don't have like the same talent as the other 5 teams do. And also when you talk about experience on the Bucks, like the Bulls need a couple at least a year to like go through that playoff battle because like Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, like actually, sorry, I take that back with AC. But Lonzo, Zach LaVine, these guys haven't been in the playoffs, just straight up.
I, I
Um,
I don't trust the Bulls when every single possession the opponent is like pointing at DeRozan or pointing at Zach LaVine, and their guy goes up and sets a screen, and they're getting literally picked on every single play. Like I've seen that as a Raptors fan. I've seen DeRozan get picked on like 5 straight possessions. It looks ugly,
yeah.
really ugly. I don't trust that.
Yeah, and then the Miami thing is interesting because I also think we match up best with them if we could pull that back up, just in terms of the way that they play stylistically. It's like a dogfight when the two teams play, and that plays into the Raptors' favor when it's that type of game. But I would not pick them second just because I think they're coming out of the East. Like they're my pick. I just think they're so good and so deep and so well coached and balanced and such good veteran experience that I just would not want to go against that team. So I would take the Celtics second, then I would go Heat, then I would go Sixers, then I would go Bucks.
I think all the advanced, like all 538 likes the Celtics like over the Suns to win the championship. I mean, the Celtics are on a run right now.
Yeah.
So I'm
My
kind
thing
of
is if I'm picking the Celtics, like if I think the Raptors could beat them in a series, it's basically like Marcus Smart, Derek White, Grant Williams just don't hit the threes that they need to hit. You know, when
yeah,
Nick Nurse sends those doubles, they don't like not that I'm saying I think I would pick the Raptors, I wouldn't, but that's kind of your bet. And I feel okay with that bet compared to like Max Strus and like Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry getting those kick out threes.
yeah. And Matthew, can I call you Matt? I feel like I can at this point. You clearly love us. Thank you, Matthew. Um,
Matthew, what do you do for a living?
yeah,
And
what do you do for a living,
I
Matthew?
would appreciate it.
Um, so let's talk quickly before we head out. They would play the Hawks. The Raptors would in the play-in.
No, would
And
they? Oh, it's right there. No, they play the Nets. It goes 7, 8, 9, 10,
uh,
and then loser of 7, 8 plays winner of 9,
plays,
10.
yeah. So okay.
So yeah, we'd play the Nets in Toronto without Kyrie. So that's a toss up. It's like, does KD score 45 or no? Basically.
Yeah, and then the winner of Hornets Hawks, which I'd probably pick the Hawks. I actually kind of fear the Hawks, and
Oh, same. We're a
they
bad
just beat the
matchup.
Raptors by 40.
It's a
So
bad matchup.
um, yeah, I'd be a little bit fearful of being in the play-in right now. And if this team, I hate to end this on a negative note, but if this team goes this whole year trying to contend instead of trying to develop young guys and then loses in the play-in, it's gonna hurt my heart. It's gonna hurt my soul.
I mean, they are developing young guys though, while winning.
Not to the extent they could have. I'm talking like give Scotty 45 touches a game and Precious, like let Precious be KD and go crazy. But I guess you're right.
Yeah.
They're close to that anyway.
Yeah, I think they've found a good balance myself. But yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the play-in is just that if you're there, there's a chance that you're going to lose a couple elimination games and then be out. Like it's not going to be a fun. It's going to be very heart wrenching to if we are there, regardless of who the matchups are.
Okay.
All right, yeah, let's get out of here. Thanks so much for everyone for tuning in. Thanks so much to our producer Don Yang for everything behind the scenes. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks. Please
Thanks,
like.
Oren.
Thanks to Oren. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel on Raptors Republic. Yeah, Yeah, follow us on Instagram where we'll now be posting every game. Just in case you forget about us, we'll post after the game on Instagram and provide the link to this show if you're scrolling your phone after the game one day. And yeah, give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, all the good places. We'll see you tomorrow night when the Raptors take on the Denver Nuggets. Late game, I think. So stay up, drink your coffee around 6 o'clock tomorrow instead of like 5 o'clock. And yeah, good night.